Nidia quest Bagaji Nidia questionda Egi wabmagwa ondanis Gabegis get ebakchiget. I'm a little bit tired today. I watched my daughter play ball all day. I mean, Gijatem get zagich. It's a little bit warm out there, so. But today, I thought we would talk a little bit more about Wesiak or animals. I know I introduced some animal terms in one of the first classes where I kind of gave you a few words from different topics, if you will, but wanted to go in and do a little bit more with animals because Jash Bakan Wesiak Kidwin, there's a lot of different animal words and terminologies and just names for all the different animals. And one thing that's interesting about some of the animals words, sometimes there's a literal meaning that's kind of wrapped up inside of the word. And you can do that with certain words in the language. Sometimes it's easier than other times. Some older words, sometimes you can't really get down to that root. Sometimes either the word has kind of changed over time or things like that. But occasionally on some of these words, you can really kind of dig down a little bit and see some of the literal meanings, which I think are kind of fascinating. But before we jump into animals, I want to do a little real kind of quick review and see if everybody can remember, or actually just kind of count up with everybody one time here. We did counting last class or the class before. Just kind of count to 10 with me. Goat, Shwe, Niao, Nian, Gotwatso, Noah, Shak, Madatsi. Good. Excellent. And you guys seem to be getting your numbers down pretty good. I mean, that was pretty quick figuring out that I said 84. I'm telling you, those numbers, once you can, has anybody used some of those techniques I talked about at all? Has anybody tried to, like when they're remembering phone numbers, maybe to kind of think the number out, or when they're thinking about addresses to kind of try to, or maybe some other things that folks might have tried to kind of help remember? Good. Anything that you can share with others that you think might be helpful? Has anybody made any like little
so I took all the numbers and I put them on cue cards, and I'm having them for everybody in class.
Awesome. Yeah, little cards where you can kind of quiz yourself on them. That's real helpful. When it comes to objects that you can actually label, that can sometimes be helpful if you kind of see that word maybe written and you kind of maybe the way it sounds next to it. That can be helpful as well. A little harder when you're talking about animals and things that move. You can't exactly label your cat like, well, bam, stick something on your cat and it takes off. I don't think that'll work. Or label a bird. Oh, there goes a Paneshi. But the nice thing about animals, though, is that you tend to see various animals throughout the day, all the time, whether it be, squirrels or birds. If you're lucky, you see the occasional eagle, and then frogs and whatnot, all kinds of different animals. So you see different animals every day. And so that can help kind of juggle your memory about those animals and those words. But yeah, numbers, like I said, if you can remember just 1 through 10, and then you can get your 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, up to 100, get those ones down. And then just remember the like shech, like 20 and, shech and gotwat. So, 20 and 6 is 26. You can really count quite high in the language, just remembering that. So that's good. Another thing that I really think is pretty important, being able to really use the language effectively in a fairly fast manner is and I harp on this a lot, but it really is fundamental. If you can get those patterns down, like you have the independent and you have the conjunct pattern. In the independent, it's like the namaji, I leave, gamaji, you leave, maji, he or she leaves, namaji men, we but not you leave, gamaji men, we all leave. Gamajim, you all leave. Majik, they leave. If you can get that pattern down, you can really take a whole list of verbs and just kind of punch them into that pattern and really start saying all kinds of things right off the get-go. The other thing that's really helpful is if you start using the simple type questions. We've talked a little bit about like the who, what, when, where type questions, but those, and we talked a little bit, I think, about simple questions, but just putting like a nay, like with that word, and you can make it into a question. So gamaji ne, gamaji ne. Are you leaving? Maji ne okwe. Is that woman leaving? You know, majik ne. Are they leaving? And then you can put the past and future if you want to say tomorrow, yesterday, whatever. But you know, and that's real effective too with stuff like even if you want to do something like, you can do real simple questions that way too, which are easy to do. Like if somebody's like getting something like some coffee or something like that, you can say like copy ne. You want coffee? Copy ne. Literally coffee question. Another one you can do is like when you're eating, you can say like megwane, more question. Literally, do you want more? Now you could say, do you want more? You know, megwane, genedwindan, do you want more? But you can just say, you know, megwane, gabakte ne. Are you hungry? Gabaktem ne. Are you all hungry? So those are really good to get down, is to be able to use those simple questions. And then the other thing is getting that other pattern, that what's called the conjunct. And that's the one where all the information is kind of on the back of the verb. So like you have maji, maji yan, I leave. Maji yin, you leave. Majit with the T, he or she leaves. Maji yak, we but not you leave. Maji ago, we all leave. Maji yuk, you all leave. And maji wat, they leave. That pattern too, if you can get that one down, really, if you can get those two patterns down real effectively and get them really kind of entrenched in your mind, and then you can really, and then you can start remembering the who, what, when, where questions. You know, the when need you, who, wek need you, what, need you, how or what, need so, how much or how many, need you we, why, need you yay, which, Nipija, where, Nijp, when. And you can get those ones down too. I mean, you can start saying all kinds of things in language, and you can also, it really will help your comprehension, because as soon as somebody says something like Nipija ejiayin, Nipija ejiayin, as soon as you hear that statement, Nipija ejiayin, if you know that Nipija is where, you're like, okay, where? And then you hear Nipija ejiayin. You also catch maybe the yin. Okay, it's talking about you. So where, something with you. And then you can just focus in on what is that verb? Nipija ejiayin. Nipija ejiayin. So what is that jia? What is that jia verb? That jia verb is the verb to go. So nipija ejiayin. Where are you going? Nipija ejiayin. Or if somebody said to you like, Nijapi gabinchigewat. Nijapi gabinchigewat. Anybody have any idea what I might be saying there? Nijapi gabinchigewat. Or maybe who's involved? Nijapi gabinchigewat. Gabinchigewat. What's that wat telling us? That wat is saying they. So Nijapi gabinchigewat. Nijapi gabinchigewat. Nijapi, when. Nijapi, ga is the past, so did. Binchige, clean. Binchige, wat, they. So when do they clean? Nijapi gabinchigewat. Nijapi gabinchigewat. So anyway, but getting those down, I mean, and then the other thing to me that's really fundamental to being able to talk real effective right off the get-go and really get going is getting down your demonstratives. And we've covered them a little bit, but we'll probably have another class where we kind of dig into them a little bit more. And those are like your this, that, those. They're pretty much attached. Anytime you have a noun involved in a sentence, you're going to see either an O or an E or a ni or a gi right before the noun, like gi bamadzjuk, those people, ni dopwinen, those tables, e dopwin, that table, e jeeptewin, that chair way over there, oda desnagen, this plate. So you're going to see those pop up quite a bit. Okay, but enough of that. Onward and upward. Let's get into some animals, some new stuff here. We may have went over a few of these animals. Like I said, we did a few animals, like maybe the very first class, but we really didn't go in depth too much. I also want to say that we do have the audio record or the recordings of each of these classes. They are available. I've sent them to Carrie, and I can put the links later in the chat thing. What I did was I put them on my YouTube channel, but I put them as unlisted. So you have to have the actual the link to go to it. That way, if anybody is talking, they say stuff, maybe they don't want to feel silly, or they don't want someone else to hear it later. No one else is going to find it. They're only going to be the one that, only if they have the link are they going to be able to find it. But I was able to put let's see, I think 1 through 7 or 1 through 8 up so far. So that way, if you guys want to go back, listen to these again, maybe hear some of the material that maybe is not clicking for you, and watch it a couple more times, you can do that. So how okay, let me find my slides here. Just 1 second. And share my screen. Just 1 second. Slideshow from the beginning. But I gotta share my screen first. Hold on. Share screen. Okay. Okay. Does everybody see a screen that says Wessiak animals? Wessiak. Okay, awesome. Wessi is just one animal. Wessiak animals plural. Wessiak. Okay, so mako. Now you may also have heard makwa. Makwa is another word that you hear sometimes used with bear. They're makwa or mako. But I was told that the original word actually goes back to mkowabjige. And it was actually Stuart King from up in Wisconsin that talked about this word many years ago. And he said that it has to do with literally the way kind of a bear turns things up and kind of is kind of like searching for things and kind of like moving stuff around. A lot of times when we think of bears, we think of like the Bear Clan and some of their responsibilities. A lot of times the Bear Clan are people that are kind of the safeguards of a community, kind of the police of a community, if you will, but they're also a lot of times the healers in a community. And that's because that bear is out there in the woods and it kind of is turning up things. And if a bear gets hurt, it knows what to do. It knows how to use different plants and things to kind of to help itself out. But it's talking about the way that bear is always kind of searching and kind of turning things up and around. Mkowabjige is what he said it kind of went back to originally. But mko, a bear. Suxi is a deer. Suxi. We also say wawashkeshi. Now, wawashkeshi actually has a literal meaning that that wawashkeshi is talking about kind of the way like how a deer kind of bounds away, and then if you see a deer, it'll kind of flick its tail up like this. Wawashkeshi, you'll kind of just catch that hint of its tail, basically kind of as it just kind of bounds away. So basically, when you see a deer like this and you think of wawashkeshi, I like to think of it as like, oh, if I was out hunting, well, I just missed that deer because it just took off. Because usually that's the last thing that you'll see is you're like, oh, there's a deer. Deer sees you, you see it, you didn't get a shot in, that deer is boom, it's gone. And you just kind of see its tail kind of flick up and just kind of wave goodbye to you. Wawashkeshi. That's kind of what that's talking about. Wawashkeshi. Yabe. And sadly, I've seen that more often than I've been successful. So Wawash Keshi. And then Yabe. Yabe is a buck. Yabe. There's actually a pretty popular drum group, Iyabe, Iyabe, and that's what they've got. That's what they've got in their name. That Yabe is that buck. But really, that Abe part kind of means man. It can also mean kind of like mankind. It's even in that word, in that Nishnabe. It's got that man kind of inside there. That Abe. If you say like Nabesi is a rooster, but it's got that Abe in there too. So Yabe, Yabe is a buck. Nijan, Nijan is a doe. Nijan. And if you guys will definitely, you don't have to do it live, obviously, but wherever you guys are at, try to kind of repeat the words with me, maybe say them a few times. The more times that you say them out loud, the better it is for your retention, and really the more you're gonna kind of hold on to after we finish this class. But like I said, we are recording them, so if there's certain things on there that you just really just didn't click for you and you want to hear it a few more times, you can definitely do that and pull that that video and kind of watch it again. So Nijan, Nijan again is a doe. Nijan. Gedkene, Gedkene, Gedkene is a fawn. Gedkene. And it's actually literally talking about its spots. That Gedge is like talking about how it's spotted. So it's talking about how that fawn has got those spots, those on it, which obviously they use for camouflage to kind of blend in, things like that. That Gedkene, Gedkene. I do know we talked about neck dosha before. I remember neck dosha. And it's talking about that one hoof. Like, with deer, they have a split hoof. But with horses, they just have that one kind of main hoof. And that's where that word comes from. If you think of the word goat, which is one, goat, and you're saying neck dosha, what it is it's kind of moved over. That word goat kind of moves over to indicate one hoofed. So like instead of goat dosha, it's neck dosha, the one that has one hoof, basically is what that literally is talking about, that word for horse. And the word in Ojibwe, which you may have heard for horse, is also similar to that, but it actually uses Bejik because they use Bejik for one in Ojibwe. And so, but it's based on that same, it's that same thing. It's like the one that has one hoof. It's almost exactly the same. Nekdosha, horse. Mozo, mozo is a moose, mozo. And this one I always find kind of amusing because in English, people are always like, there's certain words in English that don't have a plural. Like we say deer, we just say deer, one deer, two deer, three deer. We don't say deers. We don't say mooses. We just say a moose. And I always like to joke around with people. That's because they borrowed the word from Anishinaabe people. They just didn't borrow the plural of it. Because if we were to say it, the plural, we would just add a K or a Y-E-K. So instead of moose or mozo, it'd be, mozo yuck. It'd be that. So mozo yuck, or just mos is a moose, mozo yuck. Plural, I mean, sorry. But mozo is a moose. Adik is a caribou, adik. What's kind of funny about this word is there's another word that's real close to this word adik, and it's actually a type of fish, whitefish, or adik muck, and then adik is a caribou. Sometimes you hear certain words and you think, well, that sounds a lot like this, and sometimes you're right on, it definitely does. But adik is a caribou, adik. Wabdie is an antelope, wabdie, and this has a literal meaning. Wabdie, die is your rear end or your bottom, your die, and then wab or wap has to do with white. It has to do with the way that antelope's those like pronghorn type antelopes, their bottoms or their rears are white. Wabdie, wabdie. Bishuke is a cow, Bishuke. And we used to use Bishuke for buffalo long time ago. In fact, if you see that word written as like a family name from a long time ago, it's probably not in reference to a cow. It's probably 95, 100% that it's talking about a buffalo. Because at one time, there were millions of buffalo that roamed the prairies until they really went out of their way to almost drive them to almost extinction at one point. The buffalo or the bison is making a bit of a comeback, but it definitely got driven away. And I will note that a long time ago there used to be a smaller bison that lived in the woodlands type area, and they found skeletons and things of it. So even though sometimes we think of the buffalo or the bison being just out there on the prairies, there definitely were more of a woodland, smaller variation that lived further north. So our people definitely would have run into those. And back in the day, obviously, before the coming of Chimokmanik or Jaganashik, animals were quite plentiful and abundant, and I'm sure there were quite a few that were further up north. But Bashuke today is used for cow, because once the buffalo kind of got wiped out, the Bashuke, the cow, became our new kind of livelihood or food versus the buffalo. And the buffalo became Bagoch Bashuke, literally wild cow, Bagoch Bashuke. And that Bagoch means wild. The other word that I've heard used sometimes is Mishkode Bashuke. Mishkode Bashuke. Now, Shkode is fire, Shkode. Mishkode literally means that burnt over area. Mishkode. It's talking about the prairies. Because a long time ago, they used to light the prairies on fire intentionally to kind of get the nutrients out and to kind of burn off that grass and to kind of trap those nutrients in the ground. And so it was pretty common to do that in the prairie. So Meshkode Bashuke or Bagoch Bashuke. And that Bagoch is really just a pre-noun. You could actually attach that to a lot of things. You could say like Bagoch Gigyago, wild girl, or you could say Bagoch Kwe, wild woman, Bagoch Nene, wild man. You could say Bagoch Penogeic, wild children. You could put that Bagoch on a lot of different nouns to indicate wild. So Mijouet is an elk. Mijouet, elk, Mijouet. One more time here. Let's kind of go through these words and just say them maybe a couple times here. McCall, 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 McCall. And that M is not real loud. It's kind of called a semi-silent. And you have some of these in Potawatomi when there's an M or an N, sometimes a P with another consonant that falls, and then like a vowel. Sometimes that first letter is kind of quiet. So you're saying that M, but you're really saying that ko harder. So like McCall, 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 McCall. And then sucksy, deer. I'll tell you guys a little funny story about this word. I think it's kind of funny, at least. It might help kind of lock this word in your mind. And that's one thing about a lot of our words. If you can think of a story or something that relates to a word, and you can kind of use that, and it'll help kind of lock that in your mind. But this particular story about sucksy, we were teaching the word down the daycare one time, and let's see, this parent came up to one of the instructors down there, or one of the teachers. We only go down our daycare like about 15-20 minutes a day. We try to go in Monday through Thursday. Wish it was longer, but it's just the way it is. So we go down there, and this parent came up to one of the teachers, and then they said, who is this Justin Neely guy? And they were like, oh, that's our language director, the gentleman who teaches language with the kids. And they were like, oh, okay, well, why does he keep telling my daughter that she's sexy? And they said, no, I think you mean sucksy. His daughter had come home saying sucksy, which is a deer, and they thought they'd like, why is my kid saying sexy? Like, whoa, time out. So that was an interesting experience. But sometimes our words are like that; they sound like other things, and people can confuse them like that. Kind of like Gunnovich, maybe, or perhaps, but maybe that story will help you remember Suxy, deer. Wawashkeshi, Wawashkeshi, Wawashkeshi. Another word for deer, talking again about that way that deer kind of bounds away and just kind of flicks its tail up and kind of waves goodbye. Just it's gone. Wawashkeshi. Goodbye. Wawashkeshi. Yabe, 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 Yabe. A buck, Yabe. Nijan, Nijan, Nijan. A doe, Nijan. Gedkene, Gedkene, Gedkene. A fawn, Gedkene. Again, talking about those spots on it. Gedkene. Nektosha, 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 Nektosha. That horse, talking about that one hoof. Nektosha. Mozo, 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 Mozo. That moose, Mozo. Adik, 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 Adik. Caribou. Wabdie, Waptie, Waptie, Waptie. Talking about that white coloring of that antelope's bottom. Waptie, 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 Waptie. Beshuke, 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 Beshuke. Today we use that for the cow. Bagoch Beshuke, Bagoch Beshuke, Bagoch Beshuke, Bagoch Beshuke. That buffalo, Bagoch Beshuke. Or Mishkode Beshuke, Mishkode Beshuke, Mishkode Beshuke, Mishkode Beshuke, Mishkode Beshuke. Mjewe, 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 that elk. Okay. Here's our Mako. Okay, so we have a little something written here about the Mako. Mako Ndao. One Gowen Edayan. Chakshana Gago Washkabuk Namijin. Namen Paton Amozis Baquet. Wias Gaja Namijin. Mako Ndao. Mako Ndao. What does that mean? Anybody have any idea what that might mean? Mako Ndao. We use that in Dao. Sometimes you say like Nishna Ben Dao, Bodwewadmimwen8. Wegwindik Ejitchkeyan Dao. So Mako Ndao. I am a bear. Mako Ndao. Wangowin Edayan. Wangowin Edayan. That Edayan. What's that yan? That yan ending. Who's that? Who's involved when it's yan? It's one of those conjunct endings. Yan.
You?
Yeah, yeah, I. One going Edayan. So I live in cave or live in holes. One going Edayan. Jakshana Gago Washkabuk Namijin. Jakshagago or Jakshana Gago Washkabuk Namijin. Jakshana Gago Washkabuk Namijin. So I eat all kinds of sweet things. Naminpadon, Naminpadan Amozi Spaquet. Naminpadan Amozi Spaquet. I like Amozi Spaquet. Honey, Amozi Spaquet. And I'm going to tell you these because I know you guys don't know a lot of these. Wiaskeja, at least not yet. Namijin. Wiaskeja, Namijin. I also like to eat meat. So I'm a bear. I live in a den. I eat all kinds of sweet stuff. I like the taste of honey. I also like meat. I don't know if this thing is in the way. Here, I'm gonna move this thing up. There we go. So one more time. Makondao, Makondao, Wangowin, Edayan, Wangowin, Edayan. Jakshanagago, Washkabuk, Nemijin, Nemen Padan, Amolzispakwet, Wiasgeja, Nemijin. One more time. Makondao, Wangowin, Edayan, Jakshanagago, Washkabuk, Nemijin, Nemen Padan, Amolzispakwet, Wiasgeja, Nemijin. Okay. Wias is meat. Amolzispakwet is the honey. The washkabuk is something sweet. Sometimes we'll use that for candy. The wangolin is the din. The min padan is I like the taste of it. Let's see. Nemijin means I eat. So like I eat meat also. Wiaskeja Nemijin. Okay. Who's this guy? Who is this guy? He's a sucksy, right? But what kind of sucksy is he?
A doe.
Gedgene. He's a fawn. Gedgene. He's a little guy. I mean, he could be a doe also, but he's definitely got those spots. He's Gedgene. He's a fawn. Gedgene. Let me move this out of my way. Gedgenendao. Gedgenendao. Nijan o ngie. Nijan o ngie. So my mom is a doe. Nijan o ngie. Megwe sagya nadedenes. Megwe sagya nadedenes. I live deep out in the bush, or among it's where I hang out, basically. Megwe sagya nadedenes. Ngie nonak neabo nadeshamak epich gachi eyan. Gie no nakneabo nadeshimak epich gachiayan. So my mom, she feeds me milk when I'm little, while I'm little. Gekpisha mishkosen eweb mijan. Gekpisha mishkosen eweb mijan. Gekpi means finally, mishkosen, grass, eweb mijan. Finally, I start eating grass. Nade gedagas. Nade gedagas. I'm spotted. Cho wiye e Bodwewadmimwen8 dok meshnean. Cho wiye e Bodwewadmimwen8 dok meshnean. So no one, they can't see me when I lie still. Dok meshnean. So I'm a fawn. Gedgene ndao. Gedgene ndao. Nijan o ngie. So my mom is a doe. Megwe sagya, deep in the bush or the brush. Nade dines. That dines means where I hang around. Dineze is the verb to hang around somewhere. And megwe means kind of amongst, or and then sagya is out in the brush. Megwa, or not megwa, megwe sagya. Ngie, my mom, ngie, nonak neabo, milk, nade shamak, she feeds me, epich, while, gachieyan, while I am small, gachieyan. Gachie is the verb to be small, but again, you see that yan, that means I, gachieyan. Now that nade shamak, that might seem a little complicated, that's actually a VTA verb. And so they're not quite as easy to figure out, but that's, she does that to me. She feeds me. But we'll get into those eventually. Gekpi, finally. Mishkosen, grass, plural. A web mijan, I start to eat. A web mijan. Nade gedagas, I am spotted. And that gedagas is kind of where that word, that gedgene, comes from. Gedgene, the one who is spotted. Gedgene. Chowiye, wiye is somebody, but chowiye is nobody. Chowiye eboa, that's the negative and the conjunct. Wabmawat, they see me. So no one, they can't see me. Edok meshneon, while I lay still. Edok meshneon. It comes from the verb dok meshin, to lie quiet or lie still. Edok meshneon. Okay. And then I got a few little sentences that I made with some of these also. I'm hoping that the more times that we kind of hear these words, I don't expect you to remember all these sentences or to immediately be like, oh yeah, that's that. But what I'm hoping is by doing some of these sentences that you'll kind of grab onto certain things like, okay, that means over there. That means, only, and you start to recognize some of these common terminologies. So it's nice to be able to say a lot of different animals, but you'd like to be able to say it with a little more context, like, oh, nukshe openeshi, look at that bird, or oh, nija zhichket, oh, namosh, what's that dog doing? I mean, if you can just go namosh, bagosh bashuke, aspen or whatever, you just point at different animals, that's a starting point, and it definitely helps you start building some vocabulary, but it's nice to have a little more oomph with it. So a little more, we can say a little more about it. So again, I don't expect you just to necessarily just immediately know what this stuff is, but I'm using these words over and over again in a hope that you'll kind of remember some of them. Kuchimozo nibwe iba pesquak. Kuchimozo nibwe iba pesquak. There is a large moose standing over there in the clearing. Kuchimozo nibwe iba pesquak. So kitcha means great or large. And you see that attached to, you can attach that to different nouns. Like you could say like kachimko, a big bear or a great bear. Kachimozo, a large moose or a great moose. You could say kachinamosh, a great dog or a big dog. Maybe you're talking about like a Great Dane or one of those bull mastiffs, those really large dogs. I always think of those Gechwajna nekdosha. They're like horses, like ride them around. Kichimozo nibwe iba peshquak. Kichimozo nibwe iba peshquak. So nibwe is the verb, is an AI verb, just means he or she stands. Iba, over there. Peshquak, in the clearing. That peshquak has you can say peshquak or peshquak kiwin, is another way you can say it. But that peshk is talking about like a clearing. If we were to say somebody's bald, I know I've mentioned this word before, peshktebe. It's like there's a clearing on their head. Peshktebe. That's how you say somebody's bald. So that's what that clearing is talking about. Peshquak or peshquak kiwin. Banowi. Manik bagoch bishukwa kegi pambatowat eji mishkodek. Banowi manik bagoch bishukwa egi pambatowat eji mishkodek. So Banowi, long ago, manik, a lot, manik bagoch bishukwak, a lot of these buffalo, egi pambatowat, they ran about. Eji, over there. Mishkodek, on the prairie. Mishkodek. So that Eji and that Iba pretty much are the same type word. You can use those interchangeably. Like, so I could have said Eji Peshquak, and down here I could have said Benowi Monik Bagoch Bishukwak Egi Pambatowat Iba Mishkodek. And then that Mishkodek, again, is the prairie. Mishkodek, on the prairie. Mishkodek, on the prairie. So, Chowikan giwab masi o adik zagich. Chowika giwab masi o adik zagich. I have never seen a caribou outdoors. Ntano gabich iba wesio gamuk. Maybe only at the zoo. So. Chowika, never, chowika. And cho is no. If you want to, and if somebody's not getting the point, like you said, cho, and you want to add a little more emphasis to it, you can say chowi. That's kind of like emphatically no, chowi. Chowika is never, like never gonna happen. Chowika. So if you say cho to somebody and they're not getting the point, you might be like, no, chowi. Chowi. They still ain't getting the point. Chowika. Chowika. Never. Chowika ngiwabmasi o adik zagach. Ngiwabmasi. I have never seen him or her or that adik caribou zagach outside, literally outside, but here I've kind of translated as outdoors. It's the same thing. Chowikan giwabmasi o adik zagach. Mjeweyak gigi depsak da mijwati mjwe wias mzwe gizis. Mjweyak gigi depsak da mijwati mjwe wias mzewe gizis. You killed enough elk that they could eat all month. So mjweyak, elk plural. Gigi, you did. Dep, significantly. Nasak, killed them. So you've killed enough of them. Da mijwat, they could eat or they should eat. E mjwe wias, elk meat. Mizwe, all. Gizis, all month. Mizwe gizis. So Boskajep nagi nagib shkonwa o kachayabe. Boskajep nagib shkonwa o kachayabe. I shot that big buck early in the morning. Boskajep. Now, wabin means morning. Okay, wabin, but wabin is more like morning when things are like visible. It's like you can see. So wabin is kind of like maybe like depending on the time of year, maybe like 6:30, 7 o'clock. Gajep though is earlier than that. Gajep is like before the sun's come up. So maybe like, it could be 6 o'clock, 5:45. Boskajep though is like really, really early in the morning. So like maybe 4 a.m., 4:30. It's like farmer's morning, knowing a lot of times farmers, they get up way before the crack of dawn to start working on stuff. Boskajep, early in the morning. Boskajep. Nagib shkonwa o kachayabe. And I have a typo here. I said I shot that buck. What it means is I shot and missed that buck early in the morning. That's that nagib shkonwa. I shot and missed that buck early in the morning. Boskajep nagib shkonwa o kachayabe. So I shot and missed that buck early in the morning. Missed that on my English Yan Kunotage one translation there. Gago bask sawakan o suksi mthno gedgene Yahweh. Gago bask sawakan o suksi mthno gedgene Yahweh. Gago bask sawakan o suksi. Don't shoot that deer. Mthno gedgene Yahweh. It's only a fawn. Mthno gedgene Yahweh. It's only a fawn. So that bask sawa is the verb to shoot. Gago, when you put that gago in the can at the end, it's saying don't do something. So gago bask sawa can, don't shoot him or her. Oh, that sucksy, that deer. Mthno again, it's one of those kind of semi-silence. Mthno, only gedgene Yahweh. It's only a fawn. Mthno gedgene Yahweh. So that gago and that can though, you can use that on other things. Like if you were saying like, if you're telling somebody like don't leave, you can say like gago maji can. Don't you leave. Gago maji can. Or maybe you were using that word bin shige to clean. You want somebody not to clean up, which I doubt that would be the case. I'm always fine with somebody cleaning up. It's usually the other way around. They're maybe don't dirty things up, but gago bin shige can. Don't clean. Gago bin shige can. But again, maybe more logical just to say gago win shige can. Don't dirty things up. Don't mess things up. Gago win shige can. So it's one of those type. It's called a prohibitive statement or a don't do it type statement when you got that gago at the front and that can at the end. Now, if you don't have the can involved though, gago by itself can mean other things. As you've seen before, it can mean like jock shana gago can mean like everything, or jock shagago. Chogago can mean nothing. Gago just by itself just means like something. So without it being attached or in front of a verb and then with that can at the end of the verb, it means a little something different. It's one of these words that can mean a couple different things. So gago basksawa can o suksi. Ntino gedgene Yahweh. Don't shoot that deer. It's only a fawn. Nijan yewak beshoch jigbiek neshjan gito sin e basksagan. Nijan yewak beshoch jigbiek neshjan gito sin e nebasksagan. There is a doe close to the shore, but I don't have my gun. That's like the story of my life. Nijan yewak. So Nijan is doe. That ye means to be at a location. Now, you can put a walk at the end of ye to mean he or she. It's kind of an older form that you don't see as often. I could have just wrote ye or woulda ye also. Just ye. Just used, but I use this little bit older form where you put this walk to mean he or she. So Nijan ye walk. Beshoch, close, beshoch, jigbiek, jigbiek. Jigbiek means like by the shore. Now, when you're talking about the shore, it's some of the stuff is contextual. I mean, if you were by the ocean or something, by the Gitchigami, and you said jigbiek, you're talking about the ocean shore, but you could also be talking about like the shore of a lake or the shore of a river or something like that, jigbiek. Nestia, but Nagito sin e nebasks again. I don't have my gun. Nagito sin e nebasks again. So basks again is gun, basks again, nebasks again, my gun. Nagito sin, nagi, I didn't. Tone is to have. Tosin, I didn't have my gun. So Nijan yewak. Beshot jigbiak neshcha nagito sin e basks again. Jash wabdiayak egi maujesh nok e tekup. Jash wabdiayak egi maujesh nok e tekup. There are a lot of antelope gathered by the spring. Jash, another way to say a bunch or a lot. Wabdiye is that antelope. Again, talking about that white bottom of the antelope. Wabdiayak, so plural, bunch of antelope. Egi maujish nok, that are gathered or were gathered. Egi maujishnok. Maujishno is the verb together. Maujishnok, they're gathered. E tekup. Tekup is a spring. Tekup. And there's some other ways you can describe a spring. You can talk about like mokchuan, talking about the area where the water kind of bubbles up, mokchuan. But tekup is a spring. You can also use that word in reference to like a well too. So I gotta move my thing because it's in the way. I don't know if it's in the way for everybody else, but it is for me. There we go. Okay. Wawashkeshi gi basjo o, excuse me, basjo e. I don't know why I have an extra e there. Wakagan. Basjo e wakagan. Wawashkeshi gi basjo e wakagan. So a deer jumped over the fence. So wawash keshi is your deer, wawash keshi. Gi did basajo jump over it. Basajo e wakagen. I don't know why I have two of the eyes for that e sound. I shouldn't. E wakagen. Wakagen is a word for a fence. Basajo. You could say like Bishuke basajo. Oh, the buckies as the cow jumped over the moon. Basajo. Adik mijnini mishkosen. Adik mijnini mishkosen. A caribou is eating those blades of grass. He's eating them. Adik mijnini mishkosen. A caribou is eating those blades of grass. Adik mijnini mishkosen. So one more time here. I'm kind of being long-winded here. My goodness, time flies sometimes, folks. I had a lot more I want to get to. So let's see here. Okay. We'll see how far we get here. Aspen is a raccoon, aspen. And it sounds just like the word for like Aspen, Colorado, or an aspen tree. Aspen is a raccoon. Gedede is an otter. You can also say, there's another word for it. see. I don't think what the other word is. Gedede. Get to me. No. Gedede. There's another word for an otter. It's escaping me at the moment. Gedede. Gawk. Gawk is a porcupine, or get to me. Get to me, or gawk, porcupine. If you guys remember from that class we did, that winter storytelling, we talked about that gawk and kind of where he got his where he got his quills from, that gawk. Zheshko. Zheshko is the muskrat. Zheshko. He's the hero of our Potawatomi flood story. He's the one that brought that earth up, that kind of saved the world. Zheshko. We'll talk about that another day, though. Muck. Muck is a beaver. Muck. Muck. Bijou. Bijou is a wildcat or a bobcat. Bijou. Shipshi. Shipshi is a large cat, a mountain lion. I've even heard some people use this word when talking about like a tiger. Obviously, we didn't have tigers back in the day, but it's literally a large cat. So, I mean, you really could use it in that way. Shipshi. Shipshi. Singo is a squirrel. Singo, and also ojidimo. Ojidimo. Now, Singo is usually in reference to like that gray squirrel, and let's see, it should be Sechko. I got this wrong on the slide. Sechko means to catch food, catch or like store food. And that's really where that word for Singo comes from. It's that animal that kind of stores away food, for the winter. They're always burying like acorns and things like that, but the word is actually sechko. I got it on here wrong. It's sechko, to catch food or to store food. And then ojidimo is a squirrel, times in reference to that black squirrel, ojidimo. And you get some different opinions on like which squirrel is which on some of these, because I've seen them flip sometimes, where somebody says, oh, that's the gray and this is the other one. So that's debatable. It's like the word kakakshi is a raven, and then andukshkwe is a crow. And you'll hear sometimes people flip the two of those and say, well, the andukshkwe is the raven and the kagakshi is the crow. Obviously, they're really close looking together, so I could see people do that. But ojidimo or singo is this type of squirrel. Singo or ojidimo. Jingos. Jingos is a weasel. Jingos. Ojik. Ojik is a fisher, which is that little kind of weasel type looking little creature, that ojik. And we have that story about the fisher star. I can't remember if I shared that one with you back in winter time, but if not, we can share it another time when it's winter. Ojik. Nepaj Nukesi is a mole. Nepaj Nukesi. Ganepshkwe. Ganepshkwe is a mink. Ganepshkwe. Kokjis. Kokjis is a groundhog. Kokjis, or a woodchuck. Gwekwaze. Gwekwaze is a chipmunk. Gwekwaze. And apparently chipmunks have a certain range to them. They only go so far down, because I was talking to my wife one time about chipmunks, and I don't think she'd ever seen one, but that's because I just took it for granted, because they're up in Missouri, and a little further north, but down in Oklahoma, they don't tend to come that far down. And so she didn't know what that was. And I was like, oh, what was that? She just thought, man, it's a little small squirrel, like a little singos, little small squirrel. Mo'oe. Mo'oe is a wolf. Mo'oe. And this one literally talks about, mo means to cry, like mo'ak o panojas. That baby is crying. It's talking about the way that wolf kind of cries out. Ho, ho. Mo'oe. Mo'oe. And then Myingen. Myingen is a timber wolf. Myingen, another wolf. Ioni. Ioni is a possum. Though I think technically the word is supposed to be opossum. My mom's a science person. She's always telling me like it's an opossum, not a possum. But yeah, Wegwindekiatic, whatever. Possum, opossum, Ioni, Ioni. And now I got a couple sentences with that, and I think that's what we're going to get to today. I don't know. I got something about the scan. I got something about the raccoon. Aspen thou. Nangorgan wan gok nidanes minam takok bugwinesjuk makchakoyak zinakwe geshiyak nadamuak mina jakshana gagombik ednesim guk. Nada gazibi nan gago mi jan nukmukshana nades. So I am a raccoon. Once in a while, I stay in a den in the ground and in the trees that have holes in them. I eat mukchakoyak, frogs, zinakwe geshiyak, crabs, talking about the way they have those little pinchers. Nidimoak, I eat them. Mina jakshana gago, beak, ednes simguk, and all kinds of things that live around the water, that ednes simgut, that are in the water, beak in the water. Nede gizibi non gago emijan. I wash everything that I eat. Nede gizibi non gago emijan. Their raccoons are always known for kind of like taking their food and kind of washing it off. Nede gizibi non gago emijan. Nukmukshana nede dines. Nukmukshana nede dines. And I stay all over. I kind of hang out all over. You can find raccoons anywhere from your Wigadoyan Cook, your trash can, to Tukwa, Megwa Sagyam, Tukwa Keek, deep in the woods, wherever. Okay. I got one here about the Mo'oe and Dao. I'm a wolf, Mo'oe and Dao. Wangowin Edayan, I live in a den or a hole, Wangowin Edayan. Tukwa Keek Nidines, I stay in the forest. Tukwa Keek is the forest. Nidines, I hang around the forest. Mechbiak. Now this word here is another word for animal. There's Westie and then Mechbiak are animals that you can eat for food, like meat-bearing animals, basically, like your deer, your something that you would eat. Mechbiak. Mina Mechbiasuk, and little meat-bearing animals. Mechbiasuk. Nidimawak, I eat them. Nidimawak. Ebamedaki wuk do doshton edayan. Ebamedaki wuk doshton edayan. I make my home on the side of hills. The medaki wuk, on the side of a hill. Doshton, I make or I create. Edayan, my home where I live. Edayan. Okay. I think we're going to get to a couple more here. Mukndao, I'm a beaver. Mukndao. Tagosan Nadayonan, Ewajitoyan Edayan. Bikdam get Edayan. Nagek Namijin Mina Jibkesan Esadi Wie o Mamo Manowin Muk Pene Gabingaman Ndoshtonen. So Mukndao, I'm a beaver. Mukndao. Tagosan Nadayonan, I use branches or sticks. Tagosan Nadayonan, I use them. Nadayonan. Ewajitoyan, to make. Edayan, my home or where I live. Edayan. Bikdam get, so in the water. Edayan, so I live in the water or around the water. Bikdam get Edayan. Nagek is bark. Nagek. Namijin, I eat. Mina jib kesen, and roots. So I eat bark and roots. Esadi or popple or popular. Wie is the one. O mamo minowin muk is the one I like the most. O mamo minowin muk. Pene, always. Gabinginen. Nedoshtonen. I'm always making dams. Pene, always. Gabingen is just a dam. Gabingen. But Gabinginen are dams plural. Nedoshtonen, I make them. So Pene, Gabinginen, Nedoshtonen. I'm always making dams. Okay, let me move this around here so I can get to this. I think this is the last one I wanted to get to. So, okay. Gaki mbo egi wabmuk now meowuk. Gaki mbo egi wabmuk now meowuk. I saw a dead porcupine in the middle of the road. So Gok again is our porcupine. Gi mbo, he was dead. Egi wabmuk, I saw him now in the middle. Meowuk, in the road. Meow is road. Meowuk, in the road. Napajna kesiyuk mianzuk beshoch edat. Nishonat shage with a kiwin. Moles are bad close to one's home. A mole will mess up your yard. Nepajnekesiyak, moles. Meanzuk, they're bad. Beshoch, close. Edat, to where one lives. Nishonachige, a mole, or he'll mess up with a kiwin, where you live. So he'll mess up your yard, your land, with a kiwin. Kokji snigi wabdan, with a gaute yawin, and sot namagijik megwababon. The groundhog saw his shadow, so 3 more weeks of winter. Kokji snigi wabdan, with a gaute yawin, and sot namagijik megwababon. Kokjis is that groundhog, not to be confused with kojis. Kojis are like head lice. Kojis is head lice. Kokjis is a groundhog or a woodchuck. Kokjis, nagiwab. I said nagiwab. I saw. Okay, it should say woogie. I'm sorry, woogie wabdan. He saw. Kokjis woogie wabdan with a gauta yawin sot namagijik megwababon. He did see his shadow, so 3 more weeks of winter. Sengogi sechko onit and tugmanin. Sengogi sechko onit and tugmanin. The squirrel is storing up or catching acorns. Matugman is 1 acorn. Matugmanin, acorns plural. Again, that sechko is where that word for squirrel, sengo, comes from, to kind of catch or store up. Sengogi sechko onit and tugmanin. Okay. Non-Gordigan ioni ewi mbokazo gishpen zagzit. Non-Gordigan ioni ewi mbokazo gishpen zagzit. Sometimes a possum will play dead if he is scared. Non-Gordigan, sometimes. Ioni, a possum. Ewi mbokazo, he'll play dead. Gishpen, if. Zagzit, he's scared. Okay. I think that's good. That's good for that. We covered quite a bit. Again, animals is something you can talk about a lot. I mean, we covered quite a few mammals. We might go over some amphibians and reptiles and some birds, another class, because there's just a ton of animals. In fact, on my online course, I had broken them up into like categories like mammals, birds, insects, again, like amphibians and reptiles. I mean, you got fish. There's just tons of animal words out there, but we've covered quite a few of the good big animals, the big mammals, if you will. If you have different words that you're interested in, I can definitely kind of include those in our next one, but we'll probably spend some more time talking about some different types of animals. And again, I like to do some example sentences like this. Really, I don't expect you guys to understand all the sentence. I just want to expose you to different words, and then I want you to recognize and hear these nouns mainly said a lot of different times, a lot of different ways. The more you hear it, the easier it's going to be to remember. It's going to really lock in your mind. So, Miigwech Jayak and Bagosinjigem Dagwindamak or Bodwewadmimwen8. And I hope you all like this class, and Miigwech. Again, we'll try to get this one up. Carrie, I think we'll have the recording at some point, and she'll send that to me, and I'll get it up. And Carrie should have the links to the other classes if you guys want to watch them later. I was going to put it in the chat box, and I kind of forgot, but I know I emailed them to Carrie, so maybe she can email those out to the group.
I sent that to everybody.
Awesome. That way, like I said, if you need to hear it again or a few times, you can listen to it as many times as you want. And it'll always kind of be there for you guys to go back to at any point. So that's good. Miigwech, Bama Mina. Bama.
Miigwech.
Miigwech. Bama.